Hello and welcome to Bourbon Rocks. Tonight we're going to review Weller Single Barrel. Okay, so this is a product from Buffalo Trace, like all the Wellers. Weller is their wheated bourbon brand, and they have a number of expressions. This one's a single barrel. Now we're going to try to figure out what this is. What's the whole purpose of this bottle? Why did Weller make a single barrel? Did they just use it or do it because creating another expression just allows them to sell more whiskey? Or do they do it because it really is something special? Now, for those of you who know about bourbon, which hopefully most of you do, if not, we're going to talk about it here. Single barrel means basically that all of the whiskey in this glass came out of a single barrel. Okay, it's not blended with multiple barrels dumped together. It's basically just from one barrel. Now, what that basically means is that every single barrel is different. So the barrel that this bottle came out of may taste differently than a different barrel. Now, presumably there's some consistency because it's being tasted, by someone at Buffalo Trace, if not Master Distiller Harlan Wheatley himself. Somebody at Buffalo Trace is tasting these and trying to achieve a certain flavor profile. So, yeah, we say single barrels are going to vary, one to the other, but there's going to be some consistency because if it, doesn't meet that flavor profile, presumably it's going to get rejected and put into a different product. But if it's going into the single barrel, then it's going to kind of somewhat fit a flavor profile. But that being said, in between those barrels, it might actually vary fairly significantly. Now, single barrel does not necessarily mean barrel proof. They are two different definitions. Barrel proof meaning, of course, that it's dumped straight out of the barrel. It is not cut down with water. It's bottled exactly the proof that comes out of the barrel. Where single barrel simply means it comes from the same barrel. Now, a lot of times when you buy a single barrel bourbon, you might be getting barrel proof. That actually is fairly common, okay? But in this case, it's not. This still comes out of a single barrel, but it's been cut down to a consistency of 97 proof, and Weller single barrel pretty much comes out always at 97 proof. So it's still being, cut down to proof with water, but it is all coming out of a single barrel. So we're going to see how it compares. We did the CYPB, the Craft Your Perfect Bourbon, which was an 8-year bourbon, weeded on the high floors of the warehouse and bottled at 95 proof. This one's bottled at 97, so it's going to be a little bit stronger. The age is not stated for a non-stated bourbon or non-age stated bourbon. Means that they're not telling you how old it is, but if you look on the bottle and nowhere on the bottle does it tell you the age, then it has to be 4 years, at least 4 years by federal government standards. So if there's no age statement on a bottle, then it has to be at least 4 years. So we know this is at least a 4-year bourbon. Probably not much more than the 8, because then you're getting into the line of the CYPB, and then it's definitely not in the 12, because otherwise they would just put it as a Weller 12. So one can assume it's somewhere between 4 to 8. What I've found on the internet is that most people think it's in the 6 to 8 range, 6, 7, or 8 years, and that's probably accurate. But we know it's at least 4 years. That's all we can technically say, but probably closer to the 6, 7 year mark. Anyway, that's how it goes. Now, I usually smell the corks on these things. I don't always video it, but certain ones stand out. Now, this cork is very interesting. There's like an umami type flavor to this, or excuse me, nose to this. It's interesting because we'll see what happens when we get to the nose. But not yet. First we do color, as always on Bourbon Rocks, and we look at the color, and here we've got this, it's a light copper. It's a bit lighter than the CYPB. so it's probably not aged quite as long. Of course, the CYPB Craft Your Perfect Bourbon also sits on the highest floors of the rick houses, so it's going to age faster. The higher floors do tend to age faster. I'm not sure where this is on the rick house, but anyway, it's got this sort of light copper color. The body, similar. You know, it's full to medium. Leaves a nice little ring around the glass. The legs kind of run down pretty well, but then sort of stop. So it's, you know, it's got the medium to full body. The nose, keep that mouth open to bring those aromas in from your Glencairn glass. So this is kind of what I got on that cork. It's interesting. This is not something I really anticipated. When I opened this bourbon, I did not think that it was really going to have this note to it, but it's somewhere between fruitiness and herbalness or herbaceousness, kind of like olive oil. You know, olives are fruits, okay? They're not typically sweet fruits, they're a little more savory fruits, but they're kind of herbal, you know, that herbaceousness of olive, kind of sigging into, you know, another pitted fruit, a cherry, which is definitely sweet, although they can be tart as well. But, you know, and olives and cherries are very similar. If you have that little olive pitter at home, you can use it as a cherry pitter as well. But olive's a little more herbal, and the cherry's a little more sweet, but I get that sort of comparisons, maybe a little lemon zest in there too, some little tanginess. Very interesting. Not anything that you know, we've mentioned so far on any of the reviews that we've done to get that kind of olive type taste out of a bourbon. It's fun to pick out. And again, this is the single barrel. This does not mean that you're going to get that in every barrel, but I find it to have that sort of you know, that olive, maybe olive, like if you spread a little olive oil on some flatbread and so forth, so you get the weediness from the bread, but but still sprinkle maybe just a little bit of sweet cherries on there too. Or there's like that naan at Indian restaurants that have like the cherries in it and so forth, and then that's, you know, anyway. So let's see what we get on the palate and see if some of that still comes through. Interesting. I'm a little taken aback. In a good way, but I didn't expect that. It's fun to be surprised when you drink bourbons. A lot of times you get exactly what you're expecting. You don't always, you know, get interesting flavors. So it's kind of fun to find something interesting. Let's see if it comes through on the palate. First thing is that tangy lemon zest comes through too. Then the fruitiness. This time I get a little more blueberry. Not as much cherry, more on the blueberry side. But there, and that mouthfeel, that creamy sort of mouthfeel is like that olive oil, like when you're tasting olive oil. I can still feel that around my mouth. You know, I was at the seafood restaurant just a few days ago, and for dessert I had this lemon blueberry olive oil cake, and it was amazingly good, very, very good, but very, very interesting. You know, was this, you know, this fluffy, well, actually not fluffy, really more dense, but kind of gooey, dense type cake. So your wheat there, it had olive oil in it, which you could get that herbal kind of flavor in there, and then it was lemon blueberry. You know, the blueberry to give it the sort of the fruitiness, and the lemon for a little tang, and of course there was powdered sugar on it. So you get all that together, and this gives me that combination of sweet, fruity, herbal. It's extremely complex. I'm very, very, very happy. I hope all the barrels are as good as this one, but this is fantastic. The finish is very, very long. Those berry notes carry through all the way to the end. I think it drinks a little bit hotter. Up probably in the 100 range, even though it's only 97. Let's see what water does. I normally find that water gives me a little more fruitiness, And let's see if that happens here. Kentucky limestone water. You know, I haven't really ever put this up so close to the camera that it really focuses in on it. But there it is. You know, done this in a bunch of videos, but wanted you to see exactly what I got. It comes in a big bottle from Amazon, but I keep it in these little droppers. All right, let's see how that changes things. Oh, yeah. Now, the olive tends to fade, and that blueberry is really coming out here. That's... Yeah, it's blueberry muffin. I mean, you could drizzle maybe just a teeny little bit of olive oil in it, but it's the olive kind of fades. That was really more there with that first initial, that the nose and the palate, but the finish and with some water, that fruit comes. That blueberry, those berry notes definitely come back. Anyway, spectacular. I'm going to give it a king. Can't quite give it an ace. It's certainly not at the William Louis Weller of the BTAC level, but it's good. Is it worth secondary prices around $600,000? Probably not. If you can get it as a drop or win the lottery, it's worth it. Very good. I like the Weller single barrel, but do keep in mind this is a single barrel, so you may not necessarily get the same taste every time, but I like it. It's good. All right, so check us out on bourbonrocks.com. Thank you very much. See you next time.